Relationships are the base of human connection, built on trust, respect, and shared appreciation. However, not all relationships are equal in worth or purpose. In some cases, one person may fail to respect the simple principles that keep a bond strong, leaving the other feeling ignored, unseen, and less valued. While it's easy to miss small signs in the hope that things will get better, ignoring these signals often results in deep emotional wounds and unfair dynamics. Today, we're going to talk honestly about behaviors that show a man may not truly appreciate you. These behaviors are not always dramatic or clear. In many cases, they show up in small moments, hidden in routines, or dismissed as normal. However, spotting these signs is key to protecting your own happiness and making sure you're not staying in a relationship that disregards your worth. This conversation isn't about blame. It's about knowledge and understanding. When you know the patterns that reflect a lack of value, you can confront them, set boundaries, and make choices that put your happiness first. By exploring these behaviors, we can uncover what's holding you back from growing and thriving in your relationships. Let's start by looking at 4 key behaviors that often show a man isn't truly honoring you. Each of these signals comes not from your worth, but from his unwillingness or inability to appreciate you and treat you the way you deserve. 1. Dismissiveness of your thoughts and emotions. One clear sign a man isn't valuing you is when he dismisses or disregards your thoughts and emotions. At the center of a loving relationship is a deep respect for each person's view and understanding that both people should feel heard, recognized, and valued. When a man repeatedly disregards your view, it shows a lack of care and consideration for who you truly are. This behavior can come across in small things or large ones. It might start with something tiny, like ignoring you when you talk about something you're excited about, or changing the subject quickly when you bring up something that matters to you. Over time, these small moments pile up and send a powerful message. What you say or feel isn't worth much in his eyes. This can undermine your confidence and self-complexion, making you question your own worth in the relationship. A man who values you will listen carefully, respond honestly, and appreciate your view, even if it's different from his. He may not always agree with you. That's normal in a relationship, but he will treat your view as something worth honoring. In contrast, a dismissive man might roll his eyes, interrupt you, or ignore you when you speak. He may say things like, "You're overreacting," or "That's not a big deal." This kind of talk disregards your experience and makes you feel small or dramatic when you're simply trying to express yourself. It's a tactic to undermine your confidence and make you doubt your own judgment. It's crucial to realize that dismissiveness isn't always blunt. Sometimes it's hidden in a joke, a slide, or a dismissive tone. For example, he might minimize your achievements by saying, "Well, anyone could do that," or dismiss your worries by adding, "You're always dramatic." Over time, these small messages can diminish your confidence and undermine your ability to trust yourself. Another form of dismissiveness is emotional unavailability. A man who disregards you may withdraw when you try to connect on a deep level or avoid conversations about your relationship's future. Instead of addressing issues honestly, he might become distant but also contest your worries, adding phrases like, "You're overthinking it," or "You're making a big deal over nothing." This kind of avoidance signals a deep unwillingness to appreciate and value your needs in the relationship. This pattern can show up not just in conversations, but in his actions or lack of action. When you celebrate something or need him to be there, if you win an award, conquer a challenge, or simply want to celebrate a small accomplishment, a man who dismisses you might respond with silence or say something indifferent. When you're going through tough moments, instead of offering support, he might withdraw or act annoyed by your struggles. A man who truly values you will celebrate your happiness and be there to help you when you're hurting. A dismissive person will treat your achievements and struggles as something that barely matters. This kind of behavior can affect you profoundly over time. When your thoughts and emotions are constantly disregarded, you may start to doubt yourself and undermine your own judgment. This can affect your happiness and confidence and undermine your ability to appreciate yourself and your worth. Understanding and addressing dismissiveness is key to protecting your happiness. It's a sign that your relationship may be ignoring your needs and disregarding your worth. Healthy relationships flourish on communication, understanding each person's view. If a man is unwilling to do this, it's worth thinking about whether this relationship is adding or taking away from your happiness. A man who values you will appreciate your view, care about your happiness, and create a space where you can be yourself without fear of judgment. Dismissiveness, in contrast, cuts you off from that happiness and signals a lack of deep care and consideration. 2. Consistent failure to prioritize you. Another clear sign a man disrespects you is when you repeatedly find yourself low on his list of priorities. In a loving relationship, both people make sure the other feels valued and supported. It's not about dropping everything all the time or ignoring responsibilities. It's about honoring each other through actions and choices. A man who fails to prioritize you will often put his own wants, hobbies, friends, or even other people above you. It signals a lack of consideration for your happiness and worth in his life. This shows up in many forms. A man who disregards you may frequently break plans, show up late, or make excuses when you want to connect with him. While everyone sometimes has to reschedule or deal with emergencies, a pattern of ignoring plans signals that you are not a priority in his life. It makes you feel less important and more like a last thought instead of a key person in his world. Another hint is when a man disregards your needs or preferences and always puts his first. This might be choosing his hobbies over your time together, or admitting your preferences when making decisions. This kind of behavior reveals that your happiness and consideration come last in his view. In a loving relationship, both people compromise and make choices together, honoring each other's happiness and well-being. A man who disregards you will dismiss this. Instead of trying to find a balance, he will pursue whatever is convenient for him, ignoring your needs in the process. This signals that your happiness is not a main consideration in his decisions. The failure to prioritize you can undermine the bond between you, making you feel neglected and unimportant. It signals of deep care and consideration for you. When you realize this pattern, it's worth asking yourself whether you want to stay in a relationship where your happiness comes last. Might not hold much value to him, for example. He might forget important dates or fail to appreciate your efforts to create special memories. This lack of attention to detail can leave you feeling unvalued and unimportant. Sometimes his failure to put you first is a result of placing too much importance on other relationships or parts of his life. For instance, if he consistently puts his friends or family first without trying to find a balance, it can create a feeling of unfairness in the relationship. In a similar way, if his career or personal goals always come first at the cost of your relationship, it may be a sign that he doesn't see you as a long-term priority. It's also worth noting that putting you first extends past physical presence. A man who values you will prioritize your emotional and mental well-being. This means checking in on you when you're feeling down, making sure you know your needs matter, and being present during key moments. A man who doesn't appreciate you might instead show surface-level care while failing to connect with you on a deep or true level, for example. You might listen to you talk about a problem but not make an effort to help or find a solution, which signals that he isn't fully invested in your happiness when you are repeatedly put last. It can affect your confidence and your overall sense of worth. It can make you question your own value in the relationship and whether you're asking for too much over time. This kind of pattern can create a feeling of imbalance where you put in more and more effort but get back the same lack of care. This can be tiring and mentally heavy. It's key to remember that putting you first isn't about grand promises or dramatic displays. It's about small, consistent actions, choosing to check in, making time for a date, or simply listening when you need someone. A man who values you will show up for you regularly in ways that reflect you are a key part of his life. Excuses over effort. He frequently blames his busy work stress or other responsibilities for not making you a priority, but somehow finds time for other people or activities. Lack of follow through. He promises to meet up or be there for you, but then falls short and lets you down. Minimal communication. He doesn't put in the effort to stay connected, whether through messages, phone calls, or meeting in person. Emotional absence. Even when physically present, he seems distant or distracted. Failing to provide the care and consideration you deserve in a healthy relationship. Putting each other first involves balance and shared effort. A man who values you will try to include you in his life and choices. He will appreciate your time and make sure your needs are recognized alongside his own, for example. He might adjust his plans so something important for you or arrange time together when you'd normally be busy. These choices show that you matter to him and that you're a key part of his future. A man's consistent failure to put you first is not just about his choices, but about his values. A man who values you will naturally put you first, not because he's forced to, but because it's something he honestly wants to do. Seeing when you are being put last is the first step toward honoring yourself and choosing relationships where you are treated with the care and respect you deserve in a relationship. The third form of unfair treatment is manipulation through neglect or criticism. When a man doesn't appreciate you, this is a sneaky but harmful way for him to control you through manuring or putting you down. This kind of behavior is hard to spot at first because it often comes across as helpful or normal, but it slowly chips away at your happiness and confidence over time. Ignoring or disagreement's always dramatic. Sometimes it's much more subtle. It might show up as him disregarding your needs or not putting in effort to connect. This makes you feel powerless or unsure of yourself. Comparison manages you're down on yourself when really you spend too much time in your head. This makes you feel powerless or unsure of yourself. Comparison messages miniature worries or not honoring promises. All of these send a clear message that you're not worth much to him. This form of neglect makes you question whether you're expecting too much from a relationship. If you're worth loving at all, this kind of thinking lets him stay comfortable, ignores your needs without taking responsibility for it. Criticism is another tactic many use when they want to undermine you, while constructive feedback can be feedful. Persistent criticism is meant to cut you down and make you doubt yourself. A man who disregards you might attack your choices, your appearance, your goals, or even your ability to make decisions instead of lifting you up and offering support. This kind of criticism often comes under the disguise of tough love or trying to help you improve. For example, he might say you'd be smarter if you made different choices, or you'd be more liked if you acted differently. This kind of critique isn't meant to help you grow. It's meant to undermine your confidence and control your choices. Criticism can sometimes come in backhanded compliments, adding a small insult to what seemed at first to be a nice comment. This tactic makes you unsure if you should appreciate or be offended. For example, you might hear something like, "You're pretty" for someone with your style, or "You're smarter than I expected." These small jabs are meant to undermine you and keep you guessing about your own worth. Over time, this kind of treatment erodes your confidence and makes you more dependent on him for approval. Another trick manipulative people use is inconsistency. He might be kind and loving one day and distant and cruel the next. This pattern is confusing and makes you constantly try harder to win back his kindness. You start to believe you're responsible for his changing moods instead of seeing it as a form of control through this kind of neglect. And criticism of man guarantees you will stay unsure about your own worth and more willing to stay in a bad relationship thinking it's your fault instead of his. This form of control lets him avoid putting in effort or honoring your needs while keeping you close enough to satisfy him when convenient. Instead of honoring you in a loving and respectful way, the result is a painful imbalance where you suffer in silence while trying hard to make things better. Ignoring or disregarding you alongside unfair criticism and control destroys your happiness over time and makes you feel less and less sure of yourself. It's also worth noting that these behaviors often come from his own doubts. By putting you down, he may be trying to make up for his own feelings of not being enough. However, understanding his motives does not excuse his behavior. Regardless of why he acts this way, his actions are harmful and show a deep lack of respect for you as a person. The first step in dealing with manipulation is seeing it for what it is. Pay close attention to patterns of neglect and criticism in your relationship and how they make you feel. If you constantly feel worthless or nervous, it's a sign that his behavior is having a bad impact on your happiness. It's important to set boundaries and say clearly what you need. Let him know how his behavior is affecting you and what kind of change you expect. However, be prepared for resistance. Manipulative people often avoid blame or deny their actions. If he refuses to admit or deal with his behavior, it may be time to reassess the relationship. Manipulation through neglect and criticism is not a reflection of your worth, but of his ability or willingness to appreciate you. Manipulation connects to control your own happiness and find relationships built on care or happiness and find relationships built on care, respect, and kindness full. What two should to engage in healthy communication? One of the most clear signs of a man who doesn't value you is his unwillingness to talk openly. Communication is the base of any strong and loving relationship. It lets both people express their thoughts, share their view, and solve problems together. When a man avoids deep conversations, shuts down when things get tough, or responds defensively or in a hostile way, it shows a lack of willingness to put in the effort to make the relationship healthy. This avoidance cuts off the ability to connect and weakens the trust and closeness necessary for the relationship to grow. Ignoring is a very common way a man shows you he doesn't appreciate you through poor communication. When problems come up in the relationship, he may ignore them instead of addressing them directly. For example, if you bring up a concern like feeling ignored or unsupported, he might say things like, "Why are you always making a big deal of everything?" Or "Can't we just let it go?" This kind of ignoring leaves issues unsolved and signals that your thoughts and worries are not worth his time or care. Ignoring can also show up in a lack of initiation when it comes to discussing important things. A man who values you will check in on your happiness, ask you about your needs, and talk about future plans. In contrast, a man who disregards you might avoid these conversations, together leaving you feeling distant and unsure of where you stand in the relationship. This lack of engagement often makes it hard to feel a true bond or a shared future. Another sign of poor communication is defensiveness when faced with problems or conflict. A man who disregards you might respond by shifting blame, making excuses, or turning the conversation back toward you. For example, if you say his actions have hurt you, he might respond by saying, "You're too sensitive," or "You're always looking for something to complain about." These defensive responses dismiss your experiences and move the focus away from the real issue, making it hard to find a solution. Dismissal is another form of poor communication that often comes with defensiveness. A dismissive man might undermine your worries or treat them as unimportant. For example, if you say you're upset about something that repeatedly happens, he might say it's not a big deal, or you're making something out of nothing. This kind of reaction disregards your needs and makes you feel less valued in the relationship. Stonewalling or refusing to respond at all is a particularly harmful form of poor communication when faced with conflict. A man who disregards you might withdraw completely, ignoring questions, ignoring messages, or ignoring your presence. This behavior, often called the silent treatment, is not just a breakdown in communication. It's a form of control. By refusing to respond, he makes you powerless and unsure how to move forward. The silent treatment is especially harmful because it makes you unsure about yourself. It leaves you guessing what you did wrong and makes you blame yourself for a problem that isn't your fault. Over time, this pattern can destroy your confidence and make you feel nervous about your own choices, always worried you might say or do something that will make him withdraw again. In some cases, a man who disregards you may respond to communication with outright aggression. Instead of having a calm and constructive conversation, he might raise his voice, use threatening words, or call you names. This kind of behavior not only cuts off useful dialogue, but also makes the environment toxic, a place where you may feel afraid to express yourself. Hostility in communication is a clear sign that he is unwilling to treat the relationship with maturity and Dignity, when a man avoids healthy communication, the relationship suffers in many ways. First and foremost, it makes you feel distant. If you feel your worries are constantly dismissed or disregarded, you may withdraw emotionally and become unsure of where you and your relationship stand. This lack of connection can undermine the bond you once had. Poor communication also lets problems pile up instead of addressing issues and figuring it out. Together, you may find yourself experiencing the same disputes over and over. This can create a pattern of dissatisfaction and unhappiness, which weakens the relationship's foundation over time. A few reality can affect your mental and emotional health. When your thoughts and worries are repeatedly disregarded, you may start to doubt yourself or question your own worth. You may feel unsure if you are asking for too much simply by wanting to be heard. Valued. A healthy relationship depends on both people listening to each other, honoring each other's view, and addressing problems together. A man who values you will appreciate your view even if it's different from his own, and will want to find a way forward together instead of ignoring or dismissing you. Healthy communication also involves honoring the feelings and emotions of another human being at his or her cost because he wants to take control of the situation. Responsibility. Honoring each other's view, and instead of shifting blame or ignoring it, he will take responsibility and try to make it right. This kind of maturity lets the relationship grow and become more strong. And loving, if a man regularly avoids deep conversations, reacts defensively or dismissively, or cuts off communication, it's a clear sign that he is not putting in the effort to make the relationship strong. Seeing these patterns is the first step toward honoring yourself and choosing a future filled with respect and understanding. While it's sometimes possible to resolve poor communication through calm dialogue and setting boundaries, a man who avoids this process may lack the ability or willingness to form a deep and lasting bond. Honoring each other. If a man is unwilling to connect in this way, it may be time to reassess whether this relationship is adding happiness or taking it away. The relationships we let into our lives affect us profoundly. They shape our happiness, our peace, and even how we view ourselves. Seeing the signs of a man who disregards you is not just about spotting bad behavior. It's about honoring your worth, your happiness, and your future. When you realize are more than the treatment you're getting, you take back your power.